The US Women's just wrapped up, and it was so much fun to watch. Probably some of the most fun I have ever had watching disc golf. There was phallic trophies. There was one, almost two playoffs. So with that, let's break down how US Women's ended. And before we get into this video, if you like content like this, be sure to subscribe. I know this is like so middle school, but it is just hilarious. And that's the fact that the trophies for this event are trying to resemble a lighthouse, which for me, I feel like they look like a White House. I don't know. And you look at it from an immature perspective, you can see why it might look like a penis. And that just feels inherently ironic for a US women's event. But having said that, this was actually made by Tina Oakley. It looked like she has spent a ton of time making 23 unique lighthouses. So I do not want to imply that all her work was done in vain, no pun intended. But I just gotta say, it is so funny that US Women's has a penis-shaped object as a trophy. It has already been memed to death. It was just the icing on the cake for how much fun this event truly was. All right, so starting off, it looked to be a battle between Haley King and Henna. But as we'll get into very quickly, that was actually totally not the case. There was a lot of stuff within the first 3 holes that made it already known that Henna was not going to be in the mix. So before we get into all that, I will say the players that did surprise me, it has to be Silva. I know she just won back-to-back events, so she really had no expectations, but she finishes with a 3 under, pretty good for how hard of a course this has truly looked to be, and given the fact that she was probably kind of totally checked out. But apart from Silva, Valerie was definitely shredding, but in kind of Valerie fashion, even when she's doing really good, gets a nasty eagle on hole 18, she still doesn't really feel like she was ever truly in the mix, but she does finish in the top 5. And I heard people that watched her live said that she was bombing drives, her putt was flowing, but for whatever reason, she just never really felt like she was truly in it. And another player that felt like that was Kristin. She is truly fighting her own demons here. I don't really know what's going on. I think you can tell where her head's at, because in an interview on, I think, round 2, she said, "My goal for the next round is to just be happy," which very poetic. Love that. But I also feel like, what is going on with Kristin? Now, in an earlier interview, she did say the reason why she did so bad in round 1 and 2 is that the courses just didn't really line up well for her game, and she didn't like the randomness, because if you had one bad shot, you're well up position, and it kind of sets you back for the entire round. But man, does that sound like some cope. But being Kristin, she did follow that up with an insanely good hot round of 7 under, and so she finds herself in the final round with almost a chance to win, despite being so far back after round 2. But then yet another questionable call during a major happens to Kristin. Hole 5, she throws what looks to be almost in bounds, almost not in bounds. From my perspective, it looked like it definitely did not miss the Mando, but according to the spotter, it definitely did. And according to others that watched it in person, they said, yeah, I think it probably missed the Mando. But just watching our camera angle, which is the only perspective that we have, it looked like she was totally good. Based on these pictures, you can see yeah, she ends up taking a double on that hole and really sets her back. It felt like she was just not getting any momentum until a nasty C2 putt on hole 8. And she, and much like us, are finally, she can make a putt. But I really don't know what to attribute this to. I just feel like she is so much better of a player than what she's demonstrating recently. So to me, I feel like she's riding on her high skill, but not a lot of reps. Kind of like Paul. Paul can shred any weekend, but he's just not getting the reps that he used to. And then another quick shout out to Holyn Handley, who finishes with a turkey to continue her crazy streak of getting top 5 or better, finishing in 4th place. And so with that, let's move to lead card, plus one other person that I did not have on my bingo list. So going into this final round, Emily Weatherman was only back 1 stroke. But if you're a cynic about her, much like how I feel about Henna, these final round moments just don't feel secure enough to really feel like she's going to be in the mix, and that's kind of how it played out. Being at 2 over on the front 9, you knew she just never really had enough momentum to really be in the mix, but the real nail in the coffin was definitely her upshot on hole 13. Ugh, it is almost comical how bad it was. And someone commented, how about a follow flight? And at this moment, it really felt like nobody else was really in contention. It was just a battle between Eveliina, Cadence, and Haley. And so you may be asking, what about the person in first? Henna? Is she not relevant here? Ultimately, really just was not relevant, finishing somehow in 9th place. And ultimately, we could have seen the signs of this happening, but when you watch it happen, it just hurts so much more. Now, having said that, despite missing 5 C1 putts and missing all of her C2 putts, not even being close to the basket, that really wasn't the issue I felt like. Because she was making her comebackers, she was making the putts that she needs to make. It was just all her birdie chances were not happening. So to me, I feel like her shot shaping was just not good enough. And so she's fighting to save par, and that's just really not going to win you a major. So with her out of contention, it felt like, okay, Haley's probably got this because Eveliina doesn't always do the best final rounds. But then Haley does what Haley does best and plays the most erratic disc golf possible with 0 pars through 7 holes. Now, having said that, she was 1 under, which is decent, but an electric Cadence Burge. I know people call it the chainsaw. I think that's stupid. She is officially the Burge Khalifa. I've said it before. She has a crazy high skill ceiling. Therefore, she is the Burge Khalifa. The Burge Khalifa is on fire. making 3 circle 2 putts within the first 7 holes. And even she's like, how did I make that? And I could tell she was playing good because her downhill C2 putt on hole 1 was dialed. Also, she's from Huntsville, Alabama, which I was just at last week, so shout out Huntsville. And so with Henna out, it looks to be like, okay, if Cadence can just keep this cadence, sorry, it's a stupid dad joke, but I gotta make it. If she can just keep this cadence, she'll be actually in a great position to win. Now she is in chase card, so she is a good deal ahead of all the other players, but she was basically leading the entire final round. But like I said earlier, despite Haley getting a decent amount of bogeys in the front 9, she was matching every one of those with a birdie. And I feel like these C2 putts that she was making was not easy, but of course in Haley fashion, if she's on, she is truly on. Now let's not get crazy, she did miss 5 C2 putts in the round. But for a course like this, it really does feel like get your birdies while you can, but for every other hole, par is good enough. And that's basically exactly what she did for the remainder of the round. Just get a couple of birdies, but for the most part, just get your pars and get out. But I would say hole 10 was a tipping point for Eveliina. At no point was she pushing for the win, and then she gets an incredibly clean upshot for her birdie on hole 10, and for the remainder of the back 9, everybody else on her card was fumbling while she was just playing her game, which was especially true for hole 13, which like I mentioned, Weatherman had the most brutal tree hit, then go OB, but because Eveliina knew that she had to push, Shirley was not worried about messing up, which I think is the best version of Eveliina. And so for the legendary lighthouse hole, she just bombs it way down there, almost to C1, laying it up for an easy birdie. And then hole after hole after hole, she takes more and more birdies. And at this point, Burge is at 15 under, almost 16, but she has a nasty chain out. And I want to reiterate, the putts this entire weekend, but mainly this final round, from Eveliina was a totally new version of Eveliina, because yes, she did win majors last year, but it was not with putting prowess. It was just about getting it just enough over the basket to go in. That was not true for today. She made so many excellent putts that got her the win. Spoilers. And I think a major factor of that is that she knew she had to push, so she really was not worried about choking. And then right after that insanely good putt on hole 14, she has a bomb on hole 15, and the entire crowd goes crazy. And then with the exact same mistake as Burge, Haley throws it straight into the ground for her upshot, making a very gettable birdie into a par. And Eveliina parks it, so we move on to hole 16. But then at this point, Burge is on hole 18, where she could get a very important eagle. Now her first shot was just a little bit out of position, so she's left with kind of a tricky upshot, and she does get it within circle 1, but is left with a very tricky windy uphill shot, and then she absolutely drains it for a 16 under, which ends up being 1,005 rated. And for league card, it looked like it was probably not going to matter. With 2 holes to go, you assume, and Eveliina and Haley being at 17 under, you're like, okay, it's almost certainly not going to matter. And Eveliina absolutely pipes it almost within circle 1, and then Haley throws it a little bit too low, hits a tree early, and she's left with a par. So Eveliina could just submit her win right there, but she hits it just a little bit too high, but I will always be okay with a high miss for Eveliina. It's always the low ones or the like super hard left ones that bother me, but if it's dead straight high, always good. So we move on to hole 18, making it very interesting because we could potentially get a 3-way tie. So Eveliina throws an absolute bomb, but nothing that Haley is not capable of matching. And then she throws it just a little bit too low. And now she's forced to be like, okay, do I push it? Do I have to go for the eagle? Knowing that Eveliina might also get the eagle, and since it's Haley, you know she's gonna run it. And run it she did, so it goes way into the OB. And so Eveliina can basically just tap in for the win, which sounds easy enough, but then her upshot is just weak sauce. And we know Eveliina can miss these putts, so it is not over yet. I am losing my mind. I'm like, Eveliina, do not choke this. Do not choke this. But Haley's left with like a putt from C2 that could potentially go in, and then she just narrowly hits the band and missed. And so Eveliina is saved just narrowly and cements her 4th major win. So hype. Love the Dick Trophy. It is just peak. Oh, I love it. And I gotta say, I'm a huge Eveliina fanboy, so I love Eveliina getting a 4th major. I feel like she was well deserving. There was so many moments that I would have expected her to crumble. She did not. She's truly evolving in her sensibilities in these final round moments, because I truly felt like there was no moment that was too much for her. And just a shout out to Miss Frisbees, who shot 4 down on the round, jumping her 11 spots to get her into the cash. Let's go. And so obviously with some recency bias, we have to decide now, is there a world where Eveliina is actually a better player than Kristin? As of right now, of course not. But with both her being so much younger than Kristin, I feel like there's definitely a world where we see more major wins from Eveliina than we do from Kristin. Because I know Kristin has a lot of good years left, but just with numbers alone, Eveliina has so much more. And because she is getting better year after year, I really don't think she's going to peak for a couple more years. But having said that, what do you guys think? It does feel a little bit like hyperbole. And somebody made a great correlation to Isaac, because Eveliina now has 4 majors, 2 Elite Series wins, and Isaac has 4 majors, majors, 1 Elite Series win, so it feels like they only are relevant during majors, which is just hilarious. But in classic critical Haley King fashion, in the exit interview, which I feel like they did not need to do, she basically just said, "I missed every putt. That's why I lost. I missed every putt."
If I would have made any putt this week, that would have helped a lot more. I wouldn't have had to leave it to the last hole.
Is there anything that you'll take in terms of your putting routine? I know you do it a lot. Anything you'll take in terms of practice, your stroke, anything of that nature that you can take away from your putting this weekend?
I mean, I just didn't really feel comfortable. I have some issues I have to deal with, so those just kind of got worse as the rounds went off later in the day.
And I haven't really mentioned it yet, but in the previous rounds, the most gettable putts for Haley were just a little bit too low, and so she dinged a ton of putts that would have definitely gotten her the win. So yes, I do believe that she lost because of her putting in the earlier rounds. And with my fanboy aside, just based on the numbers of the Ultiworld fandom survey, Haley is the 5th least liked in FPO, whereas Eveliina is the 5th most liked. So I really just feel like despite Haley being so beloved in her home state, everyone watching from the internet is basically rooting only for Eveliina. Also, another crazy shout out to Eva Lutsenko, who is, I believe, 11 years old, shooting a higher event rating than most of FPO. And here's a nasty 7 under. I'm sure the layouts are a little bit different than FPO, but amazing stuff from her. So while I definitely think that the Rolling Ridge course was fun, it wasn't ultimately the most fun to watch for a major. And that is where Silver Lake comes in. I feel like for the FPO players, this course lines up perfectly for this entire division, and it feels so very fitting. Now you do have other people stating, is it actually entertaining to watch everybody lay up to being right under the basket? And while I could see that perspective, in the sense that it does feel like a part fest, overall I think it actually is so much fun to watch because when you do get a birdie, it really does feel like something special. And in a video I think I posted 2 years ago, I actually said Silver Lake is one of my top 10 all-time favorite courses. So if you want to see that video, link right here. And so overall, I just love this event. And so despite this kind of feeling unimportant because it is kind of wedged in between a couple of other events, I think it is so crucial to have a women's only event because it really does feel like we never truly focus on FPO. We immediately, once it is done, go to MPO. But letting it all sit, being the only event we see the entire weekend, and getting great courses along with that don't have just birdie or die, really does feel like it is the future of FPO layouts. And so I really hope that we get to see this course again, but with it being a major, I highly doubt that they'll make it back here. But man, overall, I just love this course. I love Wisconsin disc golf, and I really hope that we get more of it. But with that said, what do you guys think about this event? Was it boring? Did you not think the courses were interesting? I'd love to know. So with that, be sure to subscribe. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.
Don't let go. Chasing a dream.